Was it the birth of your daughter that made you want to take on the role on children's television?
Oh, absolutely. I began to watch Sesame Street and was entranced and engaged. Oh, I just loved it. And when I was asked to become a permanent member of the cast of the Electric Company, I didn't hesitate. I remember my agent saying at that time, he had good reason for saying it, he said, "Don't do it. They'll all think you're out of work." There was a man named Pinky Lee, a comedian, who took a children's show and never, ever did any work again outside of that show. So that was the Pinky Lee fear. And he said, "Don't do it. You may never." And I said, "I have to do it. I have to." It's wonderful. It's doing everything that's great and noble and fine. And I want to do it for good reasons. They certainly weren't career reasons. That's for sure. And I stayed with the show for 5 years. By the time we got to the last 2 years, I was just doing 2 days a week because I was doing the Ritz on Broadway at the time, a play. But they would squeeze all of my stuff into those 2 days because each scene was a lesson. And that's what they did with Bill Cosby. By the way, that's what helped get him his PhD. Yes, he was using that as credit, educational television. And that's part of his credits for his PhD. And to this day, Bill and Morgan are close friends. What a great experience. My God, what an amazing show. Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Because he was on the show also.
Oh, yes, he played Easy Reader and lots of other characters.
The Electric Company was 1971 to 1976. And what year did you do B.L. Stryker?
It came after that. I don't remember years, so I don't know. I really do. It's terrible. I would make the worst witness in life. God forbid I should ever have to go to court and defend myself with dates. I'd be in desperate trouble.
Emmy Awards for the Rockford Files?
Rockford Files was the Emmy for the, well, they were in very different categories. The Rockford Files was for Best Guest Appearance on a Dramatic Series, and the Emmy for The Muppet Show was Best Guest Appearance on a Comedy or Musical. So they were in very disparate categories.
We're going to talk some more about Electric Company and what made it a standout.
It was certainly a unique show. There was nothing ever like it on television. And to this day, there really isn't. Nothing, I think, equaled it, aside from the fact, that it had an extraordinary cast of Cosby, Morgan Freeman, myself, Skip Hinand, who was wonderful, Judy Grobart, who was fabulous, who came from Second City, by the way. It was like no other show. It had wit. Till that time, children's shows did not have wit. They could be knocked down, that kind of stuff, comedy, where people rolled around, but they didn't have that kind of wit. We were very, very sophisticated. And there was always a constant internecine battle between what was important to give the kids and what was going to teach the lesson. And I so admire Joan Gans Cooney, who is Children's Television Workshop, for saying, yes, we want to teach the lesson, but we have to engage their attention first. So if it becomes a matter of one or the other, then I want the kids to be entertained. And indeed, it was proven with my daughter, who didn't want to learn to read. She was a very reluctant reader and was entertained by the show, and one day began to read, and it took quite a while because of the show. So it is to Joan's credit that she chose to go for what would engage or compel the child to watch and then teach the lesson. That was very, very important, and it was always kind of a battle. And on the other hand, when we were doing a skit, the lesson was also extremely important, and how to teach it became a challenge. The words above our head, should they be here? Should they be in the middle? Should they be on a card that we would point out? And they tested and tested and tested this, and it took a long time before they realized, by having the show in a playroom with children, that children, fascinating, and she may have told you this, will learn even when they're not watching, when they're playing. That's one thing they learned about the electric company. They were so dismayed originally because some children would turn away from the set and play because they had toys there. It was on purpose. But they found, as these trials went on, that the children did learn that they don't have to necessarily watch, at least very young children. And the other thing they found out with us is that very young children were watching the electric company, where, a lot of the stuff was way beyond them. But they watched anyway, and were learning from it anyway. Now, I can't exactly recall where the letters were best. Was it above our heads or below? I think it was below, so we could directly point down this way. But it was fascinating. All of that. Well, it was the most incredible experience. And by the way, our choreographer, who was then a complete unknown, is a woman named Patricia Birch, who's since done tons of great Broadway musicals. She was the one who used to put our little rock and roll stuff together when I played Phyllis and the Pharaohs, that group that was so hilarious. We were teaching the PH sound, that F sounds like PH, also PH sounds like F. It was an extraordinary experience. We had to learn new sketches every single day. When I was still working on it 5 times a week, it was exhausting work. It was really exhausting. We got to the point where we really needed cue cards, and we got so expert at it. We'd just take glances or make ourselves look as if we were thinking of something and look at the dialogue, because you do have to teach the lesson. I mean, if you're going to teach it, you must teach it properly. You can't skirt and fudge around that. I made up some of my own characters, which just worked wonderfully. My little brat, I played a brat whom I named Pandora, because when they opened the box, out she came with all the evils of the world, and she wore big blonde sausage curls.
A talk like this high as be Pandora.
I love her. My daughter still loves her. I still do Pandora for her. And she wore a big Baby Snooks kind of dress, big pink dress with a huge pink bow. And she always had Mary Janes that were swallowing up her socks. Because I remember when I was a kid, my socks were always being swallowed up by my shoes. And lots of Band-Aids on her knees and shins, because she was that kind of kid. She was my favorite character, and that she was the favorite of the crew, too. The crew loved her, because I'd get very salty when I had that dress on. Very un-Pandora. And another character that, it's not that I invented her, is that I played her once and they liked her so much that they brought her back. Like the movie director that I played, that we called her the Nazi. We called her Otto Sir. Oh God, Morgan Freeman played the best thing in that. He always played the cue card guy, and I'd take my writing crop and say to the actor, "You didn't get that right. This is the word." And he'd have Band-Aids all over his fingers because I'd be beating the hell out of that card, and his hands would be bandaged. And I used to call him Marcello. I named him Marcello. And he had his hair standing up like this. That was one of my favorite characters. And we were able to ad-lib now and then and just have some great laughs. There were some massive breakups in that show. Massive breakups. And because it's a children's show, we of course tended to get rather naughty. Bill Cosby being one of the naughtiest. And obviously we're not going to talk about what he said or what he did, but it was very, very funny. And at the same time, we were doing these children such a great service. What is also fascinating is that we had an enormous adult audience, and the most sophisticated people. At the time, the man who was running ABC, Fred Silverman, was a big watcher. Lena Horne loved the Electric Company. James Taylor and Carly Simon, they were married at the time, used to watch it religiously. There were lots of people like that, in addition to just the general populace, who loved the Electric Company.